She concealed her scent to live. Now the sound-hunting alpha king desires her soul. The moon hung low over the cursed forest, silver light spilling through the skeletal branches like liquid glass. Shadows danced across the ground as a soft wind whispered secrets no one alive could hear. In the deepest part of the forest, a lone figure moved silently, her feet brushing over the moss without a sound. She was small, but her presence was like a shadow among shadows. Her name was Lyra She. Lyra kept herself hidden from the world for one simple reason. Her scent was dangerous. To live, she had learned to conceal it, covering herself with a rare shadow herb whose bitter smoke could mask even the keenest of trackers. Hunters, wolves, and creatures of the night could all feel the stirrings of life, but none could find her if she was careful. Her survival depended on silence, invisibility, and caution. Tonight, however, the forest did not feel safe as usual. Something in the air prickled at her skin. She paused, crouching low behind the roots of a massive oak. The branches above swayed without wind, and her sharp ears caught a faint, rhythmic sound that made her heart tighten. It was not the rustle of the leaves, nor the cry of an animal. It was deliberate, almost like footsteps. Lyra pressed herself into the shadows, her breath held, every nerve alive. She could sense a presence, something that moved without disturbing the ground, something that hunted not with eyes but with other senses. Her mind raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. Panic would give her away. A small movement near a bush drew her attention. A fox-like creature, its fur silver under the moonlight and eyes glowing faintly with a strange intelligence, emerged. It limped slightly, as if wounded. Lyra's heart softened at the sight. Despite everything, she had a kindness that could not be hidden. Slowly she stepped forward, keeping her scent masked by the shadow herb, and crouched near the creature. "It's okay," she whispered softly, though she knew he could not understand words. "I won't hurt you." The creature tilted its head and studied her. Its gaze was unnervingly deep, like it could see into the core of her being. Carefully, Lyra reached out and laid a hand on its fur. It flinched at first, but the warmth of her touch seemed to calm it. The fox-like creature nuzzled her hand gently, and for a moment the forest seemed to hold its breath. But peace never lasted long. A soft, almost imperceptible sound reached Lyra's ears. A heartbeat, measured and strong, echoing across the forest floor. It was not her own, though it matched her rhythm in intensity, as if the forest itself was warning her. Lyra's body tensed. She turned slowly, eyes scanning the darkness, and then she saw it, or rather felt it. A shadow moving silently among the trees, a presence that was not human yet carried a kingly air. It was Kale, the Alpha King whose name inspired fear even among the strongest warriors of the kingdom. Stories told of him hunting by sound, of his senses so keen that no creature could hide from him once he wanted to find it. Lyra's heart slammed against her chest. She had heard the legends, had always believed them to be just tales. But now she knew the truth. He was here, close enough that the air vibrated with his presence. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she remained frozen, trusting in her shadow herb and her silence. Kale paused, tilting his head slightly. He could sense her, but her scent was hidden. That had never happened before. Every hunter he had ever been could track the faintest trace of life, yet this one, this silent, invisible girl, eluded him. He stepped closer, each movement careful, controlled, like a predator circling prey, but with a touch of reverence. Lyra, despite her fear, could not look away. She had never seen someone move with such quiet authority. There was something magnetic about him, something dangerous and captivating all at once. She felt drawn to him even as every fiber of her being screamed to flee. Suddenly, a twig snapped under her foot. She froze. The fox-like creature hissed, arching its back. Kale halted, listening, his head cocked in the darkness. Then, after a tense moment, he moved again, slower this time, as if the forest itself guided his steps. Lyra realized with a cold shiver that he was not just hunting her body. He was hunting her presence, her very soul. Time seemed to stretch in the forest. The wind held its breath. Leaves hung suspended in the air. Lyra's mind raced with thoughts of escape, but her body remained still. She had learned to survive, to blend with shadows, but never before had she felt a presence that could pierce through every barrier she had built. The fox-like creature suddenly bounded away, breaking the tension. Lyra exhaled sharply, but relief was short-lived. Kale's voice echoed softly through the trees, smooth and commanding, yet impossible to locate. "Who hides so well and why?" Lyra's breath caught. The sound of him was like a low hum, vibrating through the ground, through the air, and deep into her chest. She could not tell where he stood, yet every fiber of her being knew he was near. She realized with both fear and fascination that this was no ordinary king. This was a hunter of souls, a man who could hear the essence of life itself. She retreated, moving silently as she had done countless times before. Yet with every step, the strange pull toward him grew. She could feel it in her bones, a connection she could neither understand nor resist. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, he was gone, or at least, she could no longer sense him. Lyra crouched against a tree, heart pounding. The forest seemed impossibly vast and silent again, but her instincts told her it was only a temporary reprieve. She touched her wrist, where the fox-like creature had brushed against her, leaving a faint warmth. Somehow she knew her fate was already linked with Kale, he, the Alpha King who hunted by sound. She did not know his name yet, but she knew he would find her, and she was not sure whether that was something to fear or to desire. Hours passed. The night grew colder, shadows deeper. Lyra moved cautiously through the forest, feeling every crackle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, every heartbeat that might belong to him. She came upon a small stream, its water reflecting the moonlight. Kneeling, she drank, careful not to disturb the surface too much. Even the smallest ripple could betray her. She thought of her life before hiding, a home she could barely remember, a family lost to those who sought power over the weak. Every memory was a shadow, every moment a lesson in survival. Now her existence had narrowed to one purpose: live and never be found. Yet the encounter in the forest, the feeling of being pursued not just by eyes but by soul, left her shaken. Kale he was different from any predator she had faced. There was power in him, yes, but also restraint, curiosity, and something she could not name. Something dangerous yet beautiful. Lyra knew she must keep moving. Dawn would not grant her safety. Kale's senses were too sharp, and legend said he could hear the tiniest sounds from leagues away. She relied on instinct, weaving through the forest like smoke, silent and unseen. Still, as the first hint of light colored the edges of the trees, Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. Somewhere in the forest, a presence lingered, listening, watching, waiting. She did not know how he knew or why, but she felt it deep in her bones. He would not stop until he found her. And for the first time in her life, Lyra wondered if she wanted him too. The forest was quiet at dawn, yet the air felt heavy with expectation. Lyra, she moved carefully among the twisted roots and shadowed paths, her senses alert to every sound, every movement. Though the first light of day colored the leaves in soft gold, she knew that Kale, he, the Alpha King who hunted by sound, would not rest. Somewhere in the forest he waited, or was already closer than she imagined. Lyra paused near a moss-covered stone, pressing her back against it. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear alone, but from the strange pull she had felt the night before. The encounter with Kale had left her unsettled, yet her heart betrayed a curiosity she could not deny. He was dangerous, yes, but his presence carried an unusual weight, a mixture of command and something, almost gentle if only in the shadows. The fox-like creature appeared again, emerging silently from the undergrowth. Its eyes met hers, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow to just the three of them: the silent girl, the intelligent creature, and the unseen hunter. Lyra bent to touch it, but the animal recoiled slightly before settling, as if warning her to be cautious. She nodded, understanding the unspoken message. The Alpha King's reach was long, and his patience even longer. She began to move again, staying close to the streams and stones where her shadow could hide her movements. But the forest itself seemed different today. The wind carried faint whispers, and leaves rustled in patterns too deliberate to be natural. Every instinct in her body screamed that He was near, testing her, sensing her without making a single step. And then she heard it, a soft hum, like a note from a distant instrument, vibrating through the ground and into her chest. Her heart skipped, not in fear but in recognition. It was him, the Alpha King. Not walking, not moving visibly, yet she could sense the weight of him pressing close. Lyra froze. Her breath caught in her throat and she became aware of the stillness of the forest around her. Even the birds seemed to hold their song in anticipation. She realized with a chill that Kale did not hunt like any ordinary predator. He hunted with presence, with soul, with attention that could pierce through any concealment. Suddenly, he spoke. His voice was low, like the rolling of distant thunder, smooth and commanding. "Why do you hide?" Lyra's heart thudded so loudly she feared it would betray her. She pressed herself against a tree, wishing to melt into the shadows. I must," she whispered, almost to herself, unsure if he could hear her. "I can hear you anyway," he said, closer now, though she could not see him. "Every heartbeat, every breath, you cannot hide from me." Her skin prickled. How could someone be so near and yet unseen? She tried to remain calm, but curiosity edged out fear. Against every instinct, she asked softly, "Who are you?" "I am the Alpha," he said simply. "I hear what others cannot, and I am curious about you." The forest seemed to pause, holding its breath as if waiting for her reply. Lyra's mind raced. She had survived countless dangers, but this intangible, soul-piercing presence, was unlike anything she had ever faced. "I do not wish to be found," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "You were found the moment you stepped into the forest," Kale said. His tone carried no anger, only certainty, like the statement of a law no mortal could resist. Lyra's pulse quickened. She wanted to flee, but some part of her resisted. She could feel his eyes, though she could not see them, tracing her, noting every movement, every twitch of her expression. There was power in him, overwhelming power, yet beneath it was something unexpected, restraint. He did not rush to claim her, though he could have. He simply waited, listening. Hours passed as they stood apart, separated by shadows yet connected by an invisible thread of tension. Lyra moved with caution, testing the boundaries of the invisible cord that tied them. Kale followed, not with steps but with presence. Every footfall she imagined, every rustle she heard, it was not him. Yet she felt him always. By midday, Lyra reached a small clearing, sunlight spilling like gold onto the forest floor. She knelt beside a stream, scooping water to her lips, and felt something stir in the ripples. The fox-like creature had returned, sitting at her side, watching her intently. She understood instinctively that it was a messenger, sent perhaps by Kale or by the forest itself, a reminder that she was not alone. She drank quickly, then looked up, scanning the tree line. And there he was, finally revealed, a shadow stepping into the light. He was taller than she had imagined, broad-shouldered, his dark hair framing sharp, commanding features. His eyes were piercing, yet softened by an unspoken depth, and every movement he made seemed deliberate, careful. Lyra froze, not from fear but from awe. His presence was magnetic, drawing her attention, pulling at something she could not name. She wanted to step back, to vanish into the forest shadows, but part of her hesitated. Something about him made the idea of running impossible. "You cannot hide forever," he said, his voice cutting through the forest stillness. "And I do not wish to force you. I want to understand you." Lyra looked away, focusing on the stream, trying to calm the wild thundering of her heart. "I am not like others," she whispered. I have my reasons to remain unseen. And I respect that, he said. His tone was almost gentle now, though still carrying undeniable authority. But you are not invisible to me. You never were. The words struck her with unexpected intensity. She had lived so long in shadows, so long believing that remaining unseen was her only protection. And now, the man who could find her without sight, without scent, had seen her anyway. Not just her body, but the part of her she kept hidden from the world, her courage, her compassion, her heart. For a moment, silence fell again. The forest seemed to hold its breath, listening to the tension between them. Lyra felt the pull toward him growing, an invisible tether tightening with each heartbeat. She could not understand it, could not name it, yet it was undeniable. "You are brave," Kale said finally, stepping closer, though still maintaining a careful distance. "Most would run or fight or hide, but you move with purpose even when danger is near. That is rare." Lyra felt heat rise to her cheeks. She was not used to such attention, and yet the words were not praise exactly. They were acknowledgement, recognition. Something deeper than anything she had felt in years. "I do not wish to be noticed," she said softly, "and yet I cannot hide from you." Kale's eyes narrowed slightly, as if studying her more intently. Perhaps hiding is no longer an option. Perhaps it never was. The fox-like creature stirred, moving between them. Lyra watched as it nuzzled against her, then looked up at Kale with knowing eyes. It was a messenger, a bridge between them, and she realized then that the Alpha King was not merely hunting her for sport. He sought something else entirely. Something beyond fear, beyond capture. "Why do you follow me?" she asked finally, her voice trembling slightly. "Why do you seek me when you could easily ignore me?" Kale's gaze softened, and for the first time his expression betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. "Because you are different," he said, "and I have not met anyone like you in centuries. I need to know why you move through the world as a shadow and why my soul reacts to yours." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. His words were dangerous, more dangerous than his presence, more dangerous than the forest itself. They spoke of connection, of understanding, of a bond that she had never allowed herself to feel. "I do not know," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "Perhaps I do not even wish to know." He took a step closer, the distance between them shrinking. Every movement was deliberate, slow, careful, as if he feared breaking the fragile thread that connected them. "Then let us learn together," he said softly, "or at least begin to understand one another." The forest seemed to pulse with their words, the sunlight filtering through the trees, casting dancing shadows around them. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine, not from fear, but from the realization that she could not ignore him, and perhaps did not wish to. Hours passed in silence, punctuated only by the faint sound of the stream and the occasional whisper of wind through the leaves. Lyra and Kale remained apart, yet the space between them seemed charged with invisible energy, a tension that neither could ignore. As dusk approached, Kale stepped back into the shadows, blending seamlessly with the forest as if he were part of it. Lyra felt an emptiness as soon as he was gone, as though the forest itself had lost its pulse. "You cannot run forever," his voice echoed softly through the trees, just a whisper. "And one day you will have to choose your life or your heart." Lyra pressed her hands to her chest, feeling the weight of his words. She did not know what the future held, only that the pull between them had begun, subtle yet unstoppable. And she knew, deep in her bones, that he would not stop until he understood her, and until he had claimed the bond that had already begun to form between them. The fox-like creature nestled against her, warm and alive, reminding her that she was not alone. Yet the forest seemed larger now and more dangerous, and she realized that the hunt was only beginning. And in the deepening twilight, Lyra understood the truth she had tried to deny. Kale would find her, not just with sight or sound, but with the very essence of his being. And perhaps, in some impossible way, she wanted him too. The forest deepened as Lyra, moved farther from the stream and the clearing where she had first seen Kale. Shadows stretched like living fingers across the moss-covered ground, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and wild herbs. She had been moving for hours, weaving between trees and rocks, relying on every instinct she had honed in years of hiding. Yet even as her feet pressed lightly against the forest floor, every nerve in her body screamed that she was being followed, not by sight, not by smell, but by something deeper, a presence that could sense her very essence. Kale had found her once, and even if he had left her alone for now, she knew he would not give up easily. Lyra stopped beside a cluster of ancient trees whose roots twisted like the veins of the earth itself. She crouched low, pressing her back against the gnarled bark. The fox-like creature had returned, its silver fur gleaming in the dappled light. It studied her carefully, tilting its head as though reminding her that Kale's eyes, though unseen, were never far away. She exhaled slowly, trying to calm the racing of her heart. Thoughts of Kale filled her mind, though she fought them fiercely. There was danger in him, yes, a force that could not be denied. But there was also something in the way he had spoken, something in the way he had paused and listened and, against her will, made her feel seen. The forest shifted and she felt it before she heard it, a vibration, subtle and constant like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Kale's presence was near, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable. She tried to move again, but the forest seemed to tighten around her, urging her to stop, to wait, to listen. "You are clever," Kale's voice came, low and smooth, echoing through the trees yet impossible to locate. "You move without sound, you hide without leaving trace. But cleverness will not protect you forever." Lyra's pulse quickened. She crouched lower, pressing her hands to the roots beneath her. "I do not wish to be found," she whispered. "I have learned how to survive. I am not yours to claim." "I do not wish to claim you in the way you fear," he said softly, closer now, almost surrounding her like the shadows themselves. "I want to understand you, to know you." The words cut through her like a shard of ice wrapped in fire. Her instinct screamed to flee, yet a strange pull held her in place. Something about him, his presence, his voice, the way he moved through the forest without disturbing a single leaf, was unlike anything she had ever encountered. Lyra pressed herself against the tree, her mind racing. She thought of the ritual she had heard of, an ancient practice hidden deep within the forest. It was said to sever a person sent completely from hunters, to make them invisible even to those who could track with soul and sound. The stories said it was dangerous. Some never returned from the ritual. But it was her only chance to remain free from Kale's relentless pursuit. The fox-like creature nudged her, as if sensing her thoughts. Lyra understood the unspoken message. If she went further, there would be no turning back. Kale would find her eventually, and the ritual might change her forever. She felt the weight of choice pressing down like the dense forest canopy. She began her journey deeper into the forest, moving toward the place the ancient texts had described. The air grew colder, and shadows stretched longer with every step. The forest itself seemed alive, whispering secrets and warnings as if testing her resolve. Kale followed silently, every step measured, every movement deliberate. He did not rush, did not call out, did not threaten. Yet Lyra could feel him, a constant pull at the edge of her awareness. His presence was like a shadow clinging to her, and she could not shake the feeling that he understood her in ways she did not yet understand herself. Hours passed, and the light of day began to fade. Lyra finally reached the cathedral of the forest, an ancient structure overgrown with vines and moss, its spires reaching toward the sky like fingers of forgotten gods. The air was heavy with magic and the weight of history. She could feel it in her bones. This was the place of the ritual, a place where the forest itself whispered promises and threats. She stepped inside cautiously. The cathedral was dark, lit only by slivers of light that filtered through broken windows. The floor was cold stone, covered in centuries of leaves and dust. At the center was a circular pattern etched into the ground, symbols she could barely recognize, but instinctively knew were part of the ancient rite. Lyra knelt, tracing the patterns with her fingers. She could feel the power thrumming beneath her touch, a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. This was dangerous, she reminded herself. This could change her very essence. But it was her only hope of remaining unseen, safe from the Alpha King who hunted by sound. "Do you truly believe you can hide from me?" Kale's voice came from the shadows, soft but commanding, close yet unseen. Lyra's heart skipped. She had thought she was alone, that she could perform the ritual without interference. But he was here as always, sensing her, understanding her without crossing the boundaries she had set. "I do not wish to be found," she said firmly. "Not by you, not by anyone." "Then you must choose," he said, stepping into a sliver of moonlight that illuminated his features, sharp and commanding. "You can hide from the world, but you cannot hide from yourself, or from me." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. He was right in ways she did not want to admit. Her life had been one of concealment and survival, but Cale had seen her in a way no one else ever had, and the thought both terrified and fascinated her. She began the ritual, moving carefully through the motions she had memorized. Each gesture, each breath, each whispered word carried power she barely understood. The forest seemed to respond, the air thickening, the shadows deepening. She felt energy rise within her, like a river of light and darkness intertwined. Cale watched silently, his eyes narrowing slightly. He could feel her power, her essence, the very soul she had tried to hide. And yet he did not interfere. He allowed her the freedom to act, even as the tension between them grew, palpable and almost unbearable. As the ritual progressed, Lyra felt a strange sensation. It was not just her scent that was changing, it was her essence. She could feel her connection to the world around her, to the forest, to the magic in the air. And she could feel Cale, not just nearby, but resonating with her presence in a way that made her heart pound. The final step of the ritual required her to release her fear completely, to surrender the part of herself that clung to hiding and survival. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes, and let the energy of the cathedral flow through her. The forest shivered. Leaves rustled violently, and a cold wind swept through the cathedral, as if acknowledging the completion of the rite. Lyra opened her eyes, feeling changed, not weaker, not vulnerable, but stronger, more alive, and more attuned to the world around her. Cale stepped fully into the light now, his gaze fixed on her. "I can hear you," he said softly, almost reverently. "Not just your movements, not just your heart, but your soul. You are no longer hiding, and yet you are more alive than ever." Lyra looked at him, uncertain what to say. She had expected fear, danger, perhaps even pain, but not this connection, this intensity. It frightened her, yet it drew her in. "You will not stop," she said finally, her voice trembling slightly. "I will not stop," he admitted, his expression softening, "because you are different, and because I do not wish to be without you." The forest seemed to respond, the shadows retreating slightly as if giving them space, though the tension between them remained electric. Lyra felt the weight of his words, the pull of his presence, and the impossible desire to both resist and surrender. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the distant call of birds returning to the trees. Lyra and Cale remained in the cathedral, separated by a few feet but connected in a way that defied distance. She could feel his presence in every fiber of her being, and she knew that their fates were now intertwined in ways neither could control. Finally, Cale spoke again. "The forest is no longer just yours to hide in," he said. "You have power now, yes, but with power comes choice. And soon you will have to choose whether to walk this path alone or to walk it with me." Lyra's heart clenched. She had never trusted anyone, not in the years she had survived alone, but something in him, something about the way he respected her boundaries even as he drew closer, made her hesitate. Perhaps she could trust him. Perhaps she could hope. As night fell over the forest, the cathedral glowed softly in the moonlight. Lyra sat within the circle of the ritual, feeling the energy of the forest, of her own power, and of Kale's presence lingering nearby. The fox-like creature curled beside her, a silent guardian, as if acknowledging that the hunt had changed. And somewhere in the shadows, Kale watched, knowing that the bond between them had begun, fragile and tentative, yet unbreakable in ways they did not yet understand. The night was silent again, but this time the silence carried promise, not threat. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to wonder. Perhaps being found was not the end of freedom, but the beginning of something she had never imagined. The forest was quiet as dawn broke, though the air was charged with a strange energy. Lyra she emerged from the cathedral, her senses sharpened and her spirit stronger. The ritual had changed her. She no longer moved merely to survive, but to live fully, aware of her power and her presence in the world. The forest itself seemed to acknowledge her transformation, sunlight glinting through leaves as if celebrating her courage. Yet freedom came with consequences. Kale, the Alpha King, had been waiting. He emerged from the shadows, silent as a wraith, yet commanding as ever. His dark eyes studied her with intensity, but now there was something different. Respect mingled with curiosity, desire mingled with caution. "You have changed," he said softly. "Not just your scent, not just your presence, but your soul." Lyra met his gaze, unflinching. "I am no longer hiding," she said. "I am not invisible, and yet you are still here." Kale's lips curved slightly in a rare, almost vulnerable smile. "I would not leave. I do not wish to leave. You are unlike anyone I have ever known." The fox-like creature appeared again, its silver fur glinting in the morning light, watching them both. Lyra felt its presence as a blessing, a reminder that she had allies even in the shadows. She took a deep breath, feeling the forest pulse beneath her feet, and understood something profound. The hunt was over, but a new journey was beginning. Together they moved toward the castle, a looming structure of stone and shadow, crowned with spires that pierced the sky like the claws of giants. The people within whispered of Kale's power, of his ability to hear what none else could, and of the darkness that lingered in the halls. But Lyra felt no fear. She had faced the forest, the ritual, and her own doubts. Nothing here could intimidate her, not if she faced it with Kale by her side. The castle gates opened silently, as if the stones themselves recognized the bond between them. Kale led her through corridors dimly lit by flickering torches, each step deliberate, each echo a reminder of his control and his restraint. Lyra felt the weight of centuries in these walls, the power of kings past, and the curse that had lingered like a shadow over the kingdom. "You must understand," Kale said quietly, "the curse that has bound my family, it is ancient. It whispers through the halls, through the blood of every Alpha King before me, and now it has felt your presence." Lyra's eyes widened. "My presence?" "Yes," he said, pausing at the throne room doors. "Your soul resonates with the forest, with the magic of this land. You are not merely a witness, you are part of it, and part of me." The weight of his words pressed upon her, yet she did not falter. "Then we face it together," she said firmly. "If this curse must be broken, we will do it together." Kale studied her for a long moment, a mixture of pride and admiration in his eyes. "You are stronger than I imagined," he admitted. "And yet I see the fear behind your courage. That fear, it is what makes you human. It is what makes you extraordinary." The throne room was vast, its ceilings high, adorned with tapestries that depicted battles and kings long gone. Shadows pooled in the corners, flickering with the light of torches, and a low hum of magic vibrated in the air. At the center lay the remnants of the ancient curse, a sigil etched into the stone floor, black as night and throbbing with a pulse that mirrored Kale's own heartbeat. Lyra stepped forward, her bare hands brushing against the cold stone. She could feel the power radiating from it, a dark energy that sought to bind, to control, to consume. She swallowed, steadying herself. "Tell me what to do," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. Kale nodded. "You must let go of everything that holds you back. Trust in yourself and trust in me. Only then can the curse be broken." Lyra closed her eyes, drawing in a deep breath. She let the memory of the forest, the ritual, and the fox-like creature guide her. She thought of every shadow she had ever hidden in, every fear she had ever carried, and she released them into the stone floor, into the pulse of the curse. The sigil seemed to shiver, responding to her courage, to her power, and to the bond she shared with Kale. Kale stepped close, his presence grounding her. "You are not alone," he whispered. "I am here, always." Together they placed their hands upon the sigil. A surge of energy erupted, light and shadow entwining like a storm of fire and water. The walls trembled, the torches flickered wildly, and the air vibrated with a force that was almost unbearable. Lyra felt the pulse of the curse seeking to resist, to push them apart, yet she held firm, anchoring herself to Kale's unwavering presence. For a moment, she thought the energy would overwhelm her. Her vision blurred, and the darkness threatened to consume everything. But Kale's hand on hers was steady, unyielding. His voice cut through the chaos. "Do not falter, do not fear. We are stronger together." Lyra drew on every ounce of courage, focusing not on fear but on the connection they shared. She let herself feel Kale's strength, his focus, his understanding. And then, with a final surge of will, the curse shattered. The sigil cracked, black stone splintering and dissolving into light. The energy that had bound Kale's family for centuries evaporated, leaving a silence so complete it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Lyra opened her eyes, and the throne room was calm once more. The shadows had receded, the torches burned steadily, and the pulse of the kingdom seemed freer, lighter. Kale released her hand, though his gaze never wavered. "You did it," he said, awe in his voice. "We did it." Lyra smiled faintly, a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "We did it together," she corrected. For a long moment they simply stood, two souls bound by choice and courage, by challenge and trust. The bond between them was undeniable now, no longer a subtle pull or a whispered connection. It was a living, breathing thread that could not be broken. Kale stepped closer, and Lyra felt the warmth of his presence surround her. "You have changed everything," he said softly. "Not just the curse, not just the kingdom, but me." Lyra met his gaze, her heart pounding. "And you have changed me," she said. "You showed me that I do not have to hide, that I can be seen and still survive, that I can choose my own path." A faint smile curved Kale's lips. "Then stay with me," he whispered. "Not as the hunted, not as the hidden, but as the one who stands beside me. Your soul belongs with me now if you wish it." Lyra hesitated, though only for a heartbeat. She thought of the years she had spent hiding, the nights spent alone in fear, the countless moments of running and concealing. And she thought of the forest, the ritual, and the bond that had grown between her and Kale. "I wish it," she said finally, her voice steady, filled with certainty she had never known before. Kale's eyes softened, and he extended his hand. Lyra took it, feeling the warmth of his touch, the strength of his presence, and the promise of a future built on trust and courage. The fox-like creature appeared again, sitting silently at their feet, its silver fur shining in the morning light. Lyra reached down and stroked it, feeling the final threads of the forest's magic settle around her. She was no longer merely surviving. She was alive, fully, and ready to face whatever came next. Together, Lyra and Kale stepped out of the throne room into the light of a new day. The curse had ended, but the story of their bond was only beginning. The kingdom could now breathe freely, and two souls, once hunter and hunted, had found something greater than fear: trust, understanding, and the unbreakable connection of hearts entwined. Outside, the sky was clear, the sun rising over the castle walls. Birds called to one another in the trees, and the air carried the scent of new beginnings. Lyra felt the warmth of Kale's hand in hers, and she knew that no shadow, no danger, and no fear could ever sever the bond they had forged. And as they walked together, side by side, the forest and the kingdom alike seemed to whisper their approval. The Alpha King had found not just the hidden girl, but a partner, a companion, and an equal. And Lyra had discovered that being seen, truly seen, was not weakness, but the beginning of her greatest strength. The fox-like creature followed silently, a guardian and witness to the story that had unfolded, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting light over a world no longer bound by shadow, and two souls finally free to be together.